So first tonight, an asylum seeker has been jailed for life for murdering a stranger in a crowded bank in Derby. Well, it's emerged that Haybe Nur made desperate calls for help in the hours just before the attack. Nur then made a drunken threat to kill people and then take his own life. By the time an ambulance crew arrived to check his mental state, he had stabbed a restaurant owner to death. Well, in a moment, we'll hear reaction from his victim's family and friends. First, here's our social affairs correspondent, Jeremy Ball.
Open the door!
Catching a killer. This is the moment Haybe Nur was arrested in Derby.
He's here. Show us your hands!
The police found Nur asleep under a duvet next to his bedside table. He'd come to this country claiming to be seeking protection, but he took an innocent stranger's life. This was Nur's victim. Govinda Johal was a 37-year-old husband and the father of 3 young children.
As a police officer, you want to provide answers as well as justice. And I cannot say to the family why. It's a senseless, motiveless attack. No robbery, nothing was stolen. The family are absolutely devastated. It was clearly a random attack of a complete stranger.
Mr. Johal was a familiar face at the bar and grill he owned at Shelton Lock, where his friends knew him as Danny. This is where he was murdered, a busy branch of Lloyd's on St Peter's Street. And almost 6 months on, other customers at his bank are still horrified.
You know, that sort of stuff, it happens in dark alleyways and dingy corners, but I mean, I didn't think anything like that happened in the bank, no.
Frightening, isn't it? I'm not going to say too much, but there's too many people, as far as I'm concerned, that shouldn't be here.
It must have been terrible for the staff to witness something as awful as that.
Shocked because it could have been me.
CCTV cameras captured the brutal horror of the attack. This is Mr. Johal arriving at the bank to withdraw takings for his staff's wages. This is Nur arriving there shortly afterwards. It's around 2:30. He leaves only 22 seconds later. 22 seconds was all it took to stab a stranger and take his life.
Sad day.
Today, Govinda's family and friends saw that footage in full in court.
It was heartbreaking to watch. Somebody just walked in, just senselessly, just stabbed him and just casually walked off like nothing's happened. I mean, that's the bit. It's heartbreaking, is what I mean. What the family are going through is just devastating. I mean, he was a friend of ours and a very lovable guy, a very funny guy. Always had a massive smile on his face whenever we used to meet up. The government have got to get on top of this.
And today, more about Nur's background emerged in court. Nur came from Somalia, where he claimed his fiancée was shot in front of him in an honour killing. In October last year, he used a small boat to cross the channel illegally. He was then placed in Derby after claiming refugee status. After Nur's initial asylum claim was turned down, he appealed. That gave him the right to stay while his appeal was being considered. He was still waiting for a final decision when he carried out the attack. Detectives traced Nur's movements from his neighbour's CCTV recordings. Here he's on his phone, casually walking into town. Nur had been placed in a shared terraced house just outside the city centre. Several neighbours told us how they saw armed police descend on Western Road within hours of the attack because Nur was already on their database for damaging a phone shop. But Nur told officers he couldn't even remember carrying out the attack because he drunk 3 bottles of vodka. And tonight it's emerged that concerns had already been raised with the emergency services that day.
We could never have predicted as a police service what he went on to do that day. But we do know that on the morning and on the day prior to the murder, he did make calls to the migrant helpline asking for help around his mental health, frustrations around the asylum system and his appeal. Part of this was threats to kill other people and himself. They attended the address after Nur had been out, come back around 3 p.m. He's been in his ambulance, but they wouldn't have been aware as to what had sadly just happened.
Tonight, Nur's beginning a long prison sentence for that murder. When he's released, he'll be deported.
Well, Jeremy was actually in court for Nur's sentencing and some horrific details came out today.
Yes, and so much emotion. I was watching Nur in the dock. He had his head bowed as he listened to this throughout. Now, he has been told he will spend at least the next 24 years behind bars. And the judge, Sean Smith, said that what he did in broad daylight was brutal and callous, and described that footage as a real-life horror film. And, in fact, there were tears as some of Mr Joe Howe's family decided to stay in the courtroom to watch that footage played out in full. And we saw that horrendous attack from several angles. You see Nur casually walking up to him and then plunging a kitchen knife through his heart. We also heard a very, very powerful victim statement. Just have a listen to this extract read by their family liaison officer.
The day Danny was murdered, our lives didn't just change, they shattered. Our home, once filled with laughter, warmth and his joyful presence, is now suffocated by a silence so loud it hurts. We struggle to sleep, and when we do, we are haunted by nightmares of the violence that stole him from us. Our family is broken. The deepest wound of all is the impact on Danny's children. They ask, when is Daddy coming back? They say, a monster took Daddy away.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking to hear that. I mean, do we know anything more about why Nur attacked him? Why he did it?
Well, still no obvious motive, but we did hear a lot today about Nur's mental health. He was alcoholic, he had post-traumatic stress disorder. He was in tears when he rang that helpline a couple of hours or so before the attack. He was telling the person on the end of the phone that he was frustrated he wasn't allowed to work, frustrated he couldn't get a doctor's appointment. He then threatened to walk into moving traffic. Then he said he was going to kill 500 people before killing himself. Now, I think there are obvious questions tonight about how different agencies responded to that, because the emergency services essentially treated this as a cry for help. An ambulance crew was sent round to his address around a couple of hours later, but by that point Mr Joe Howe was already dead.
Had there been any sort of previous concerns or anything about Nur?
Yeah, I mean, Derbyshire Police told me that they only recently discovered that Nur had previously had police records in 4 European Union countries that he had travelled to. Now, these were mostly for minor incidents, but he did have one robbery conviction in the Netherlands. And of course, this feeds right into that febrile political debate about small boats, doesn't it? You know, who's coming here, where they're housed, how they're monitored, that sort of thing. I think there are also going to be concerns tonight over whether this could be a lightning rod for community tensions as well.
Yeah, indeed there might be. Jeremy, thanks very much indeed for that.